Cool. Hey guys, it's Narrative Tarot. I took my sweater off so you can see my busted shirt. I actually got this at H&M years ago in the men's section. It's one of the few things that stayed after my KonMari clear out a few years ago, and I've been steadily giving clothes away since. But that's not why I'm talking today. So I just uploaded another video a few hours ago about different decks that I used in 2020, like the most used ones, and kind of explaining what I felt about them when using them, and kind of how some of the different beliefs and things I've learned about in 2020 intersected with how I then interpreted the deck. So check that out on my channel. I forgot I'm not directly doing this to YouTube because I was like, I'm on another account, but my tarot account, I'll upload this later. So there's that. So this is going to be my journey into tarot and how I got started reading and why I'm on YouTube now. So let's go all the way back. I've been on YouTube before. It was for natural hair. I was on here like 9 years ago. I had gone natural, which is for Black people generally. You're growing out the hair as it naturally is. You're not growing it out and then processing it with a relaxer or anything like that. So I've been on YouTube once before for that, and then it switched over to college dorm stuff, and then I just stopped because I actually got locked out of my account. So I've been on YouTube before, so I'm not new to this. I'm true to this. No, I'm kidding. But I stopped, and I blogged a little bit for a while. I stopped that, came back a little bit. So I've kind of been a little bit around in different spaces. So I've done written stuff, I've done videos, I do Instagram. I'm not on TikTok or Snapchat. I was on Snapchat, and then I was just like, this is pointless. I just deleted my LinkedIn because I was like, this is, who uses LinkedIn? And I'm not really on Facebook actively. So kind of I've kind of been around a lot of things. I wasn't on MySpace or anything like that. I wasn't on Tumblr either, but I mean, it's a lot. The internet has changed in a lot of ways, and where people are gravitating to really is kind of interesting across generation and topic and things like that. But back to the point. So I say that all to say that I've gone through many cycles of wanting to participate in things due to FOMO, and then actively engaging in the material required to then be someone who's of value to others in the explanation of those topics, or learning to work on myself before helping people. So I do take stints off of social media to work on myself if there's a particular block that I have and I feel like I can't really overcome it unless I'm off, and I actually process it and I talk about it either with my friends or just to my diary, out loud, whatever, and I kind of make peace with whatever it is that's an issue. So there's that. So how did I get started into tarot and spiritual journey overall? So I was raised Christian, Baptist to be specific. I mean, I'm not gonna say we were very religious, very strict in dress and doctrine, but we definitely weren't listening to secular music, and kind of conservative in that way. Not really conservative in that we didn't cuss and stuff like that, but conservative in that way. By the time I was 14, 15, however, I started to inwardly rebel because I just felt like I was not interested and I wasn't reading it, and I got baptized. I forget what age, but I remember wanting to get baptized because I knew I would get the approval of the community, like the religious community, the church. And so like I actually had a friend in the church, and we like made a pact that we were gonna like, when they were like, who wants to come and stand with Christ and stuff like that, we were gonna get up and be like, hey, we want to get baptized. But what ended up happening was I went and I got accepted for baptism, and she didn't. Her family member actually told her to sit down as though she was joking and I was legitimate, but we were both joking. And we both were like, well, if we do it, we'll get the approval of our religious community. There was no like, I really want to dedicate my life to Christ. It was more like this is what people do, essentially. This is what people do when they're in the church. They eventually get baptized, eventually become a part of the church in some way, and that's what I was striving for. I don't believe you should get baptized at a very young age. I think you should really get it when you're an adult, because you can actually make a decision about whether or not you want to, and I think that the purest intentions would come out of that. So anybody who wants to dedicate their life to Christ, I think doing it as an adult makes more sense, because you actually have the real choice to do it. So by the time I was like 15, 16, I was kind of not with it. I didn't want to go to church. I didn't want to be in church. I didn't want to be around it. I wasn't reading the Bible anyway. And I craved the freedom of being outside of that. So 18, I stopped going, and plus I was in college, so I didn't really need to. I didn't go to chapel. I didn't feel the need. I didn't really care. There was a brief period where I felt like, okay, I'm an atheist, and then it kind of gradually settled back into agnosticism, and that's kind of where I stayed agnostic / if I were to be in this sphere, I would be non-religious, and then I'm just not actively but passively just living my life, you know. And if I go back to Christianity or just religion in general, that's what happened. If I don't become an atheist, that's what happened, and that was it. So I graduated college, and then about a year out, I had gotten a job and things like that, and was adjusting. It was the same job I kept over the summers, so I just had a job, which is great. It wasn't related to what I went to school for, but I mean, you have a job or whatever. It wasn't what I wanted to do. It's not what I went to school for, and it was like, okay. And that was its own personal like journey, like related to intellectualism and what happens when you're considered the smart kid, but then you subsequently, when you're away from a certain sphere where you are known to like dominate or do well in, you know, you kind of collapse. It's like the case of people who are like intellectually smart, but they don't have any like life skills. And I found myself not really having any life skills after college, in comparison to my peers. And it went beyond like not being able to drive. It was not knowing credit, not knowing money management, like basic things. I felt like, even like cooking, like basic things that you would think someone my age would know, but I was very sheltered, so I did know them and I didn't seek to know them. So so there was a lot of intellectual like mental chasm and split of like, you're this smart kid, or you're considered the smart kid, but you haven't been able to balance this out. You haven't been able to figure this side out, this like real world kind of thing. Is you were in the practicum, and you're not in the practicum, and you're in the theory. And it was just really hard, and it still is hard, because it's like I have to like make up for like how many years of like not knowing certain things and not actively choosing to seek out the answers to those questions that I didn't even know that I should have. So now that I have them, now that I've like, well, let's see what the questions are and let's go through them. Blatantly ignoring like questions that end up being like really important to you, you know. So I was working and there was this guy, and if you ever watch this video, hey bro, we're like friends now, so it's kind of like it doesn't matter. But so I met this guy that I was working with, and it was cool. It wasn't like there was like a big impression. It was just kind of like we would talk back and forth, but not like any substantial way. So it wasn't like I was like, oh, this is my like best friend ever. It was just kind of like somebody I worked with. And so that was like my junior year. My senior year, I didn't work there anymore. Like I would pop into where I worked, but I just wasn't there anymore because I needed to graduate. I wanted to be out in 4 years. So I graduate. I'm living my life, humdrum. I feel really trapped. I feel really like just nowhere in life. Like I'm going nowhere in life. And you know, like people who've been in situations where they feel like they're not going anywhere in life, like you can comment down below. But it's a really sad space to be in. You don't have to be like high school graduate or dropped out at 8th grade to feel like you're not going anywhere in life, right? Because after I graduated college, I went to grad school, and I attended grad school once, couldn't pay for it, dropped out. And then later on I went twice and dropped out. So I've gone to college once, grad school twice, dropped out twice. And it was just like, you know, you follow that spark and you go, and then you realize it's not what you want. So I was really lost, really lost. And so it just happened to, it was something that this now friend posted on Facebook in 2016-ish, I think. And we were going back and forth, and it's the liberal arts STEM kind of versus battle that we always have. And I was just telling him, people assume that you can't be both, and going back and forth, just making arguments. And he commented something, and I was just like, thought to myself, why am I like drawn to this person? Like, you know, it kind of felt like it went beyond like an engaging conversation. Like there was something there. It wasn't a void filled. It was like the realization that a void was even there. And not that like, oh, you have daddy issues or you have some sort of issues. It's just there's some sort of void. There's some question that you don't even know. But this person arises the possibility or the existence coming into you that there is a question that even exists. So I was like intrigued. So we exchanged numbers and we were talking. And at that time, I was talking to somebody, and then that like flatlined and it went horribly left. And I remember talking to him, and he was going through a rough time. And like I put my foot in my mouth, and then I was just like, oh, this is so like, this is just terrible. But they brushed that off, and then we started talking again. And August 2016 was pretty cool. And then I got a new job. I finally like made it up that I wasn't going to deal with this fucking job anymore. It wasn't like it was a horrible job. It was just very low paying, and then everybody who worked there was also like underpaid, and it was just a lot of like, this is what I also noticed about like jobs where you go nowhere in life, jobs where you can clearly see there's like a terminal and you're not gonna rise above that ceiling that they set or that you set for yourself, you think that you can't exceed. There's always drama. And I find that jobs that have this kind of office gossip, there's always someone complaining, someone who's been there for 10 years, or someone who is in the corner like, you ain't going nowhere, I'm not going nowhere. It's just, you just be like, what is this? Like, why is this? Why like, I don't know. Some people never get out, some people never ask why. They just are like, this is just how it goes. But for me, I kind of felt like I had an inkling, like, why is all this shit just happening? Like, because I'm generally a quiet person and I don't like to be bothered, and now that I've gotten older, I really just don't give a shit. And this might be because my Saturn return is coming up. I'm 27. I just can't care about some of the shit that people talk about. Like reality TV. I don't watch reality TV. I do like commentaries every now and then, but like gossip channels where they talk about celebrities, exposés, scandals. I can't watch stuff like that, and I don't even watch TV that talks about that because I find that it's just too much. Like, you get wrapped up in someone else's life, and it's just a lot. It's a lot. So I finally got a new job, and this person and I were like talking steadily and stuff like that, and then it shifted. And this is the first time I've ever felt like a relationship shift, and like energetically shift. Like, I don't think I really noted in my mind whenever I shifted with someone else. So I was thinking to myself, wow, with this, it was kind of like a feeling of, you feel the person pulling away, and I was like, what is this? Like, what is this feeling? And so by the end of the year, it felt like I was having a breakdown. I felt like the only thing I can describe it as is like, and I was gonna say the King of Oz, the Wizard of Oz, when she gets sprinkled and she's like, I'm melting. That's what it felt like. And it just felt like I was having a meltdown, like, and I was just like, what is this? I don't know if this is playing in the background where you guys can hear it. I just didn't want it to be totally silent. I don't like total silence. But it just felt like I was on the verge of like a breakdown, not like a hard psychological breakdown, but that something was breaking down. And so I ended up, it was essentially kind of being triggered. So I'm still talking to this person off and on, but I noticed that I was more and more like obsessed, more and more seeking validation, wanting to be in a relationship. The person's steady like moving away, and I'm trying to like pull them back. And it was a very much, you guys would call it victim mentality. I don't like victim mentality. There's a whole thing with that, but codependency would be the best term for this whole thing. Very codependent, very like, oh, come back. And it wasn't good, y'all. So that was off and on for like a year and a half. So by this time, I like up and gone, like 2017, I started watching tarot readings, and I like had a great experience watching them, and I liked it. I liked that they seemed to like resonate with what I was like going through, and I was like, yeah, I think this is it. And then, you know, they started talking about relationships. I think most people get into tarot because of relationships. That's it. I don't really judge you. Should you stay there? Absolutely not. Don't stay in tarot land specifically for relationships. I think your soul's growth is more important than a relationship, because you will always be with you. You know, that person may not be, you know. Even if tarot says they will be, they may not. So, but I felt very pulled into tarot, very pulled into what this person thought of me, where this was going. Yeah. You know, falling in deeper into the hole. Why isn't he contacting me? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Digging and digging and digging and digging and digging. And I basically, you know, was just overwrought. Like, it was just a lot mentally, I felt like. So I started grad school like on a whim for the second time, and then I get there and then I'm full-time, and I'm full-time for both school and job. The school was different. I had to commute. I hadn't yet gotten over my fear of driving, so I was commuting on the train, which okay, because like where I was going, like the train and stuff like that was everywhere, and it ran on time much better than where I was coming from. So I was going back and forth, and I was working, I was taking time off, and I just felt like kind of lost. I'd gone to a HBCU, Historically Black College University, for undergrad, and I was going to a PWI, predominantly white institution. And so I felt like I wasn't adjusting to that. And then my job, it was kind of like not a call center, but kind of a call center job, but it was just a state agency, like call center. So like a specific state department, but the call center for a specific state department. And so I felt like I wasn't going anywhere with my life. I was very frivolous with my money. I was spending it just on food. I was very sedentary. I mean, I had started taking walks. I had even decided to take an hour-long break just so I could go outside and walk and just circulate. But that feeling of I'm going nowhere. I'm not doing anything. I'm not being anything. How did I even get here? How did I get to where I have a degree? You said this was gonna be like, you know, the best thing ever. You get a degree and you go out and you can do things. Why can't I do anything? And so it was just kind of like, again, I felt stuck. And what ended up happening was I ended up getting this job opportunity through the school. And it ended up being like a scam. It ended up being like you send money and then you do something. And, you know, when you're in it, you're like, yeah, like, this is going to be okay. Because I ended up leaving my job because I had no more time to take off to go to school. They were like, you know, they told me one thing about taking a leave of absence. Then it turned out I didn't have enough time. Worked in the job, right? I hadn't worked long enough to even take it. So like essentially they told me Wednesday, I quit Friday, and then, you know, it turned out that the thing that I had sent money for was a scam. And then looking back, I had so much regret because I was like, I should be better than this. Why am I getting duped? Why am I losing it? And I had to pay that back, and I had enough to cover it, but I essentially had no savings because I didn't save. And it was just a lot falling apart. Luckily, I lived at home, and I still live at home with my grandparents. And had they not been around, I would essentially be homeless. So, you know, probably would have lived with like my father or stepmother, but like still, essentially, you know, had no one in my family been around, I'd essentially be homeless. Like then till now, probably. That's where this life skill thing comes from. So stick with me. I, you know, was unemployed for like 2 years. That person I was talking to, we were talking to on and off, because he was doing stuff. Eventually it came to the point where we like were parting ways because he was moving state, and I was like, you know, this has shifted. By this time, I was watching tarot readings, but I was also doing tarot readings. I did tarot readings for my friend and myself, and I got my first deck, which is a zombie tarot. I like that deck so much. It was so cool. It wasn't the Rider Smith deck. It wasn't like, you know, it wasn't that deck. You know, I felt a little bit more original, and my first deck wasn't the Rider Smith or the Rider Waite. I was like, ooh, I got the zombie tarot instead. Stun on you guys. But eventually we were talking back and forth. We met up, and he was driving, I wasn't, and he had like a really cool car. I won't say what kind of car it was, but it was a really cool car. And I was embarrassed because it was just like I had no money, had no job. I had started these workshops and I was getting paid from that, but it was like nothing essentially for the month. It was like $300 for the month for one class. That was the equivalent of like a week. But you had to do the classes, the workshops, the art workshops, which it was like every like weekend for a month. So imagine that. Like I wouldn't have been able to live on that had I been on my own, right? So what happened? What else? So he dropped me off after we met up one day, right before he was leaving, and I noted in my mind, I was like, where he dropped me off was where we were supposed to meet like a few years ago, but because we weren't on the same page, which ended up being a big theme in our relationship, he knows this, you know this, we ended up going to different locations. I went to the downtown location and he went to another location, and it was just, that's what it was. But he dropped me off at the place we were supposed to meet in my mind all those years ago. And so I was like, we wrapped up a cycle here. I've been into astrology. I've been going back and forth into it, and it was cool. So I was still having those feelings. I was still like infatuated. I was still like, wanting to be in this relationship, and why won't he notice me and all this kind of stuff. And will he notice me? Will he finally say something? Does he feel the same way? But not like speaking it, like, like fucking speak up, bitch. Speak up. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning, so I don't want to like speak up for real. But like speak up. But I just felt like it was a lot. And so it was a lot mentally I was dealing with, and just not processing a lot of stuff. And I was angry, and I was kind of like depressed, and because I wasn't working, and I kind of just stopped looking after a while. After 2018 rolled around, I kind of just like mid 2018, I kind of just like stopped looking. And I was just like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life. I don't know. Like, I really don't know. I don't have any plans. I have a lot of interests, and they're all over the place, but I can't get started. I don't have money. I don't have this. I don't have that. I don't have the other. And I just kind of essentially given up. So that was that. So I kind of gave up, basically. And around Venus and Scorpio 2018, like there was like this whole thing in the air of like, oh, people that aren't supposed to be together, they'll break up at this time. And I'm like, whatever, like we're cool. And he was still like pulling away, and I was still trying to be codependent and stuff like that. And eventually, like one day, I like told him like I didn't want book recommendations because, and I didn't tell him this, and I didn't get a chance to, but I was going to say that like I kind of am not supposed to take advice from you anymore in terms of like spirituality. Like there's a certain part of my journey that I now have to undertake alone, and I knew that internally. So that's why I said it. And like he went off, and we were going back and forth, and we were like fighting and stuff like that. And when the dust settles, you think like, oh, this will be like funny tomorrow, and then it just like wasn't funny tomorrow. It was kind of like a realization after like a few days. I was like, wait, we're not talking anymore, like we're not friends anymore, like that's it. And I was like devastated. So I cried like a lot. I mean, I like brushed it off and played it off in the moment with the conversation, but like after that, like I was in tears because I was just like, I didn't understand what I had done. I was very bitter afterward, like months afterwards, and resentful that I was essentially rejected. But I was trying to figure out why, like when it came to what I'd said specifically, why. Like I kind of felt like everything else I understood, like codependency and stuff like that. I've been watching tarot, and I understood that codependency thing, and it was just like someone like stabbed, twisted, and pulled out, and it was like very gut wrenching. So Venus and Scorpio 2018, I'll like never forget. I'll never fucking forget that year. I'll never forget that transit, because that broke me into pieces. And so I was listening to like Kimbra, who I really enjoy. She's the girl that was with like Gautier. Now you're just somebody that I used to know. But she has her own like separate like career, and she's actually really good. Her albums have been really good, and she has a good voice. And she came to my city one year and like did a presentation. I was like so stoked. I was like the only one in there I think that knew her, and I was like, oh my god, she's here. But I was like listening to her like music, and music was so cathartic for me and stuff like that. And I said, well, if I have time and space to now be alone, I guess I better use it. Because I feel like you've been pulling me away, Spirit, from this person for like, you were trying to pull me away in 2016 when I felt the energy shift, and what I was supposed to do was like walk away and live my life and do better and not focus on being with this person because I didn't want to be with myself. I was supposed to like go off and do my own thing, and then like if we were supposed to be together, we would be together, and that would be a healthier relationship. But that's not what I did. I wanted to cling to the person because I didn't want to be alone by myself, and I didn't want to deal with issues that came with being by myself, and I didn't want to resolve stuff. And I noticed, and I wrote down in my diary, that I wanted to be with people who were doing things with their life because I wasn't doing anything with my life. And so I wanted people who were ambitious and talented and smart, because I wasn't that, or I felt like I wasn't that. And I also was afraid of the work that it would take to be that. And then the kind of thing that came with being attracted with someone was like they were aloof, right? So like you feel like you can never obtain this kind of stuff, like the people you attract will be aloof because you like believe in the back of your mind that like you can't obtain that. So it was gone, and I had to like, I'm trying to wrap this up because I got like 5 minutes left. So he and I separated, and so it was the end of 2018. I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna like do it, and I'm gonna do my own thing and just fuck it, like fuck it and fuck him.